So right now, the biggest concern by Lucasfilm, and especially Disney, has much to do with the impact of Indy 5, the Dial of Destiny, and the overall fandom reaction, determining exactly what's going to happen with Kathleen Kennedy over at Lucasfilm. That's her biggest concern right now, because there is a firing plan still in place, depending on the box office results for the Dial of Destiny. It's a very complex thing. We'll talk about that more in greater depth later on. But there's a lot more developments happening over in the Hollywood sphere, or the Hollywood realm, as I like to call it, that's been going on with Kathleen Kennedy specifically. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support, and let's get right into the subject. So, as you all are very well aware, the Star Wars franchise right now is in shambles. It's all highly dependent on Jon and Dave to save it all, which is their plan with the Ahsoka series, as well as a Season 2 of Ahsoka, and the launch of The Mandalorian Season 4 come 2025. And yes, I say 25 because of the writer's strike has officially shifted the scheduling of the shows quite drastically. So what's really interesting about what's unraveling for Kathleen Kennedy and her time as a producer and her time as a major Hollywood influencer. What's interesting about all of this has a lot to do with the major studios literally banishing Kathleen Kennedy, and exactly why they decided to finalize these plans that have been in the works for well over a month now, that has been fully put into place. We're going to be going over the different studios, exactly why they did this, and what kind of reaction they got from the most recent changes applied to Star Wars and Indiana Jones. Now, with Kathleen Kennedy falling into many issues with Indy 5, and especially the Acolyte, however, currently Kennedy's situation has been growing worse for herself in the Hollywood realm. Currently, it is known that finalized, of course, plans that many major studios have banished Kathleen Kennedy from ever evolving and ever having any kind of possibility of working with them. These studios include Universal, Lionsgate, Sony Pictures, Columbia, Fox, Paramount, New Line, and yes, even Legendary Pictures to add to the list, is growing by the month. As of now, her husband Frank Marshall is trying to use his contacts to undo this form of banish for Kathleen Kennedy in Hollywood, and Frank Marshall is actively using his close contacts connected to Universal and Sony, for starters, to allow Kennedy to have the chance in the future to work with them if her time at Lucasfilm does go into trouble and comes to an end after Indy 5. This big shift from Hollywood studios comes shortly after Indy 5 failed terribly at the Cannes Film Festival, with subpar reviews spewing out almost immediately after. Many studios have now come to the realization that she has wrecked 3 franchises now, many of which were very well-known ones like Star Wars and Indiana Jones, the lesser-known one being, of course, the Willow series, which got cancelled due to the fan backlash and lack of budgeting skills for the show with a forced agenda driven into it. Now let me stop here quick. We talked about this lightly a couple of weeks ago about this whole situation where Kathleen Kennedy was essentially quote-unquote fired from Hollywood, never getting any kind of chance to work with all these major studios. That has now been fully put into place. There's some other studios out there that are still on the fence, on the off chance that Indy 5 does come out to be a big success, but most studios really are not actually positive about that outcome. So here's the reason why you are beginning to realize and see a turnaround for Hollywood films. And believe it or not, it has all to do with Kathleen Kennedy, as big as a shocker that really is. A lot of studios have been using Kathleen Kennedy as a textbook example of ruining major franchises in a very short time. This is why you have great films coming out like Top Gun Maverick that came out, big success, Mission Impossible coming this July, and the Super Mario Bros. Movie, the Sonic films. We also have a Super Mario Bros. Sequel that's in the early development phase. Things are turning around, and even there's a Legend of Zelda movie actively in development, reportedly. So Disney's really beginning to go into panic mode about all these studios doing great things for their fans now, and really listening to the fans about what they want to see on the big screen or at home on a streaming service. I digress. Alright? Moving on, Kennedy is now in full panic mode, reportedly behind closed doors, as she begged Disney executives to do a last-minute marketing boost for Indy 5 to give it more exposure. This is going to cost Disney now even more money and more potential loss if the film comes to fail at the box office come the first 2 weeks of July. Now, more studios are beginning to banish Kathleen Kennedy from Hollywood week by week as they witness the unraveling of Indy 5's poor marketing and leadership skills at Lucasfilm, and are beginning to use Kennedy as, like I said before, a textbook example of how to ruin multiple franchises in less than 10 years. Again, Kathleen Kennedy asked for all of this. I have no sympathy over her. I really have no remorse over what she did to Star Wars and Indiana Jones. I'm just putting it out there right now. You live and learn. That popular phrase, you live and learn, you absolutely do, and this is the prime example of how you live and learn by your horrible failures, especially in the Hollywood realm, and the consequences that come along with that. So, look, we know that right now, Kennedy and Frank Marshall are trying to pull a lot of strings to undo a lot of these things that, you know, the studios have done to Kathleen Kennedy by preventing her from ever having a chance of working on a film with them. I'm not even quite sure if Kennedy would ever want to do that, because she's already settled at Lucasfilm, and she's already, by the way, planning to create her own studio that's going to be dubbed simply as Starlight Productions. That's the code name. We talked about this, of how she's going to be hiring Leslie Headland as apparently a vice president to run the studio, as well as having a lot of ex-Lucasfilm employees coming on board, or maybe even some of the existing employees to transfer over to compete against Star Wars, Dune, Star Trek, etc. And you would think Disney would really be very offended over that and would want to fire her ASAP if they realize that someone's creating a company that's going to eventually become a major competitor to themselves. You would think that she would want to back off on that at least a little bit and keep it a little bit secret, but no. So I don't know what Kennedy has on these Disney executives. I don't know what she has on Disney specifically, but she has done so much damage to the franchise that most likely cannot be undone, at least in the short span. It's going to take John and Dave years, and I'm talking about 3 years minimum, to really turn all of this around. You need Ahsoka to be a smashing success. You need Ahsoka Season 2 to really boost it up another notch on a level of success. And Mando 4 needs to literally make you forget about Mando Season 3. That's all that really needs to be done to turn things around, for starters, as a starting point. That's not even the end of the story there, so it takes a lot more effort than just that. So overall, guys, I would really like to hear, what your thoughts are on Hollywood's decision to banish Kathleen Kennedy from ever even getting a chance to become involved in a motion picture, or involved in a hit series, or anything like that. And I would not be surprised if Netflix is going to be the next runner-up to banishing Kennedy. So guys, drop a comment below, fill me in below what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again. No.